The sun had barely risen over Dun River when the quiet widow, Mara Ellison, stepped into the sheriff's yard. The wind carried dust across the open ground, and every ranch hand seemed to sense that something was about to break. Mara had lived 3 silent years after her husband's death, keeping to herself, avoiding trouble, and staying far from the town's sharp tongues. But today she walked with a stiffness that looked like fear disguised as courage. Sheriff Calder watched her arrive. A stern man with a reputation for fairness, he rarely acted without reason. Yet the setup behind him, 2 tall wooden posts and several ropes hanging loose, looked like something more serious than a routine inquiry. The crowd that gathered whispered among themselves. Some said Mara had been seen sneaking around the old Miller barn. Others insisted she'd been carrying secret messages across the valley. But no one truly knew why she'd been summoned. Calder stepped forward. "Mara Ellison," he said, "there's a matter that concerns the whole town. I need answers, and I need them plain." Mara's voice trembled, but her eyes stayed steady. "Sheriff, I've done nothing wrong." He motioned to the wooden frame. "Then you got nothing to fear. This here's a truth test. A tradition older than this town. It don't hurt unless someone's hiding something." The words alone made the crowd shift. Mara's hands tightened around the small cloth pouch she carried. "Sheriff, please, don't stretch me like that. I'll tell you everything I know." Calder hesitated. He wasn't a cruel man, but pressure from the ranch council had forced his hand. "I'll hear your truth," he said, "but you'll speak it straight." Mara drew a slow breath. 3 nights ago I saw a man near Miller Barn, tall, wearing a gray coat. He was carrying a lantern and a ledger. I followed him because he looked lost. But when I got closer, he vanished like smoke. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "The Gray Rider again." Calder's eyes narrowed. "You sure about this? Folks been telling stories about that shadow for months." "I swear it," Mara said. But I didn't want to speak. People already talk enough. The sheriff looked torn. The council wanted proof, not stories. He glanced back at the ropes, then at the widow standing alone against the rising tension. Before he could answer, a ranch boy came running from the road, shouting, "Sheriff, you need to see this. Tracks, fresh ones out by the ridge." Calder stiffened. The widow lowered her gaze as the truth she feared began to surface in ways no one expected. Ader, Sheriff Calder followed the ranch boy toward the ridge, his boots crunching over the dry earth. Mara walked behind him, guarded by 2 deputies who kept a cautious distance. The morning sun had risen high enough to burn through the haze, revealing wide plains stretching endlessly in every direction. The closer they got, the more tense the air became, as if the land itself was bracing for a confession. At the ridge, the boy pointed to a cluster of prints pressed deep into the soil. "These weren't here yesterday," he said. "I swear it." Calder knelt. The tracks were long, sharp-edged, and set in a pattern he recognized from whispers around campfires. The Gray Rider, whoever he truly was, moved like a ghost but left traces, just human enough to spark fear. Calder stood, dusting off his hands. "These go straight toward Miller Barn," he muttered. Mara's face paled. "Sheriff, I told you what I saw. I wasn't lying." A deputy stepped forward. "But why'd you keep quiet for days, Mara? Folks say you visit the ridge at night. You could be helping him." Her voice cracked. "I go there to pray, not to meet shadows." The deputy folded his arms. "Convenient answer." Calder raised a hand, silencing him. "Enough." He turned to Mara. "You're caught in the middle of something bigger than you understand. But until I know your side is clean, the council won't back off." A gust of wind blew grit across the ground. Mara shivered. "Sheriff, I've lived alone since Ethan died. If there was danger near town, I wouldn't hide it. But the man I saw, he moved like someone who didn't belong, like he wasn't walking the earth at all." Calder stared at her long enough for discomfort to bloom. "You're saying he wasn't real. I'm saying he wasn't ordinary." Tension rippled through the deputies. Rumors about the Gray Rider had spread for months. Figures appearing at dusk, barns found unlocked, papers missing from ranch offices. But no one had proof, only fear. Calder exhaled slowly. "We need answers, Mara, and the council wants them fast." The deputies exchanged looks. One pointed back toward town. "Sheriff, we should bring her in. The truth test will settle it." Mara's breath hitched. "Please, you don't need to stretch me. I'll help you find him. Just don't bind me like a criminal." Calder rubbed his jaw, torn between duty and instinct. He sensed honesty in her voice, but the pressure around him felt like tightening rope. "If you're innocent," he finally said, "the test won't harm you. But if you're hiding anything, even a small detail, it'll show." Tears filled Mara's eyes, though she kept her chin lifted. "Then take me," she whispered. "But remember this moment, Sheriff. Because when the truth breaks open, you'll see I wasn't the one you should have feared." Calder nodded grimly. "Bring her back." And with that, the widow was led toward a fate the whole town would soon regret. By the time they returned to the sheriff's yard, a larger crowd had gathered. Word traveled fast in Dun River, and nothing drew attention like a public truth test. The wooden frame stood in the center, ropes swaying lightly in the breeze. Mara was guided toward it, her steps slow but steady. Every eye stayed fixed on her, as if the town needed someone to blame before the sun reached its peak. Sheriff Calder stood beside the structure, jaw tight, heart heavier than he'd ever admit. "Mara Ellison," he said, "I'll ask you one last time. Are you hiding anything about the Gray Rider?" Her voice trembled but didn't break. "I've told you everything I know, please. Don't make me prove it like this." But the ranch council members, stern, men standing behind the crowd, signaled with cold, unyielding stares. Calder felt trapped. He gave a reluctant nod to his deputies. The ropes were secured around Mara's wrists and ankles. The crowd hushed as she was lifted just enough for tension to show. She winced but said nothing. Calder stepped closer, searching her face for the slightest hint of deceit. Instead, he found fear, real, raw, and undeserving. "Speak the truth now," he said quietly, "and we can end this." Mara squeezed her eyes shut. "Sheriff, the man I saw wasn't alone. Someone else was with him. Someone from this town." A sudden ripple moved through the watchers. Calder leaned in. "Who?" "I couldn't see his face," Mara said. "But he carried a ranch ledger. One only officials would have." The crowd murmured louder now. Ledger thefts had plagued them for weeks. Calder's heartbeat quickened. "Why didn't you say that sooner?" "Because," Mara whispered, "I thought you wouldn't believe me." Before Calder could speak, a sharp crack echoed from the far end of the yard. A gunshot. Panic surged as a rider burst through the gate, tall, cloaked in gray, horse-kicking dust into the air. The Gray Rider. Chaos erupted. People scattered, deputies reached for weapons, and Calder instinctively shielded Mara. The rider charged toward the council members, forcing them back with a raised pistol. "No more lies," the rider shouted. "The town deserves the truth." Calder stepped forward. "Who are you? What do you want?" The rider pointed directly at one councilman, Reed Hallstrom. "Ask him what he's been hiding in those ledgers. Ask him why ranch families are missing money and land." Gasps rippled through the yard. Hallstrom turned pale. Calder's gaze hardened. "Reed, is this true?" Hallstrom stumbled backward. She saw too much. That widow was snooping near the barn." Mara's eyes widened. "I was trying to help." The truth landed like thunder. Calder ripped the ropes free, lowering Mara safely. "You're done, Reed," he growled. Deputies seized the trembling councilman. The Gray Rider lowered his hood, revealing a scarred but familiar face, Ethan Ellison's long-lost brother. "I came back," he said softly to Mara, "to protect what's left of our family.